Hare Krishna.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Paripurna Kacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Gangamai Ki Jai, Jamunamai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, Maharaj. And thank you, everyone, for being here for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayādvaita Swami. It is Friday, November 25th, 2022, in New York, a day later in India. And we are reading in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th chapter. Tonight we'll be starting with verse number 11. So we're eager to hear your questions and comments. And if you'd like to lead tonight's closing kirtan, please do. And also share these classes with your friends. And we're so happy you could be with us tonight, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Kendra Prabhu. And thank you to all. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Matreyo Vacha Guna Vyatikarakaro Nirvishesho Pratishtitaha Purushastad Upadanam Atmanam Lilayasrajat. Maitreya said, eternal time is the primeval source of the interactions of the three modes of material nature. It is unchangeable and limitless, and it works as the instrument of the Supreme Personality of Godhead for His pastimes in material creation. Purport: the impersonal time factor is the background of the material manifestation as the instrument of the Supreme Lord. It is the ingredient of assistance offered to material nature. No one knows where time began and where it ends. And it is time only which can keep a record of the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material manifestation. This time factor is the material cause of creation and is therefore a self-expansion of the personality of Godhead. Time is considered the impersonal feature of the Lord. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Tadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenaman Ho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopya Radha Kantana Mostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Krisha Panu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vacha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhobhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Kuna Vyatikara Karo Nirvishesho Pratishtataha Purushastad Upadanam Atmanam Vilayasrajat. Vidura has asked Maitreya about time, and now the answer begins. Time is the impersonal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's the instrument of the Lord, and it's the cause of the material creation. Time is mysterious. No one knows where it began. No one knows where it ends. And everything takes place within time. Time only keeps a record of creation, maintenance, and destruction. So time is powerful. Time brings about the manifestation of the material world and brings it to an end also. Yes. All right. Any comments or questions so far?
Maharaj?
Yes.
So here, Prabhupada is saying the impersonal time factor is the background of the material manifestation as the instrument of the Supreme Lord. Elsewhere, Prabhupada talks about eternal time, so it would seem to be not the same manifestation of time, because we have a universe has a beginning. So from the beginning of that universe, that's time for that universe, I would assume. But
Time,
still
time is always there.
I'm sorry?
The time is always existing,
Mhm.
and it just Mahavishnu is breathing.
Mhm.
So for a certain amount of time, the universe is manifest, and for a certain amount of time, it's unmanifest, and then manifest again. But the effects of time may not always be. It's always there. Eternal time, in one sense, because it's not different from Krishna. It's the self-expansion of the personality of Godhead, the impersonal features. So the impersonal feature is always existing. The self-expansion is always existing. But it's sometimes, its effects are sometimes seen and sometimes not seen. There's destruction, and then we say, well, that's the end of the universe. So that's the end of time. But no, time is there in the background.
Right.
And after a certain amount of time, again, the universe will appear. Budva, budva, praliyate.
Right. So time is existing not just as a feature of each universe, but it also exists, as you say, as the background outside of the universe. It overarches all the universe, all the creations of the universe. So my question is that, like for instance, within Krishna's pastimes, there's the meditation on the Asta Kaliya Lila, and different pastimes are said to occur at during different periods. And is this something that is only to be understood as manifesting in Bhoma Vrindavan, or these pastimes refer to what's going on these periods refer to what's going on in the spiritual world? Also,
In the
I've always thought
spiritual world, everything is there, but it's not. It doesn't take place within the time that we know.
Mhm.
Imeshardakyo vabhajati nahi atrapi samaya. In the spiritual world, not half a moment of time elapses.
Mhm.
So, but still, there's Krishna's dancing in the evenings with the gopis. He's getting up in the morning and herding his cows. So there's sequence, and there's some kind of sense of different periods, but still there's no time. So we can't conceive of that within our experience. There has to be time. There always has to be time. But in the spiritual world, everything is there. There's activity, there's sequence, and yet there's not this time.
Can it be said that because Prabhupada, I guess what I'm trying to say is that, we experience time as both a creative and destructive force. Prabhupada says here that the universe comes into being because of time, or what, I forget exactly how he puts it, the material cause of creation. But similarly, we experience it because we're in material consciousness, because we identify with matter, and so there's always change, but everything is always existing in the spiritual world. So can it be said that time, well, I think you did say that time operates differently. Can we say that it's a kind of time, but it's not material time?
Once you say that, it's something else. There's time in the sense that there are different. Again, in the morning, Krishna does this, in the evening, Krishna does that, and yet time doesn't pass.
Right.
But we're not going to understand that. We're not going to understand that. It's beyond our experience.
Thank you.
Kendra Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. And when you say that time does not pass, somehow just hearing you read this particular purport, which I've been reading for several days, it reminds me of the description of the soul, how for the soul, there's neither birth nor death at any time. And what we experience as ourself in the material world is this like a continuum of body. We don't see where the soul goes or where it comes from. All we see is, various bodies have their particular lifespans, and that's what we measure. We call that our life. But the soul doesn't require a body in the absolute sense, and neither does time require a material universe to have events play out. But it's just like, it's a mechanism, like it's the verse in the purport are saying, it's a mechanism for Krishna's pastimes insofar as they occur in the material world. Does that sound okay?
Yeah. We heard earlier that Krishna glances over the material world and activates everything by the power of time. So that means that time is outside of this material manifestation. It's not generated by any of the material ingredients. It's a separately existing manifestation or invisible manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He glances over the world, sending the power of time. It's, again, a mysterious thing, time. There's, in fact, maybe I'll read something from my book, because Prabhupada says it's the self-expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I wrote, of course, in Ecclesiastes, there's a famous passage about time. So I'm commenting on that. We take time for granted. It just is, always, and always has been. But why? From where could time have arisen? And how and when? The very questions send our minds in circles. How can there be any when without time? And how could time have arisen without time in which to do so? We find ourselves stuck with having to regard time as irreducible and inconceivable, beyond our power to fully understand. It always was and always will be. It was here before we were and will still be here once we are gone. Ruling the life of every atom, every star and galaxy, every microbe and king, it is all powerful. Every philosopher and every scientist must stand within the limits of time. It objectively exists. We see its effects everywhere. And yet we can't quite put our finger on it, can't quite figure out what it is. Everything has its origin within time, yet time, limitless and all-pervading, seems to have no origin beyond itself. And so, time is God. For those of us who are agnostic as to the existence of God, of a supreme being, a supreme controller, a supreme absolute, a God beginningless and endless, all-powerful and all-pervading. Here is that God, undeniably evident, undeniably real. So there's God for you, for the materialist or the agnostic. God is present in the invisible form of time, and one can't deny it. We're all under the control of time. Yes. Prabhu quotes from 3:11:38, eternal time is never lost along with the life of Brahma. It continues, but it has no ability to control the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because the Lord is the controller of time. In the spiritual world, there is undoubtedly time, but it has no control over activities. Time is unlimited, and the spiritual world is also unlimited, since everything there exists absolute plane. Thank you. That addresses Tulsi Priya's question. Time is always existing in the material world, even after Brahma's lifetime, and it exists in the spiritual world, but time is unlimited. Every moment lasts forever. Okay, let us move on, unless there's more. The time factor is also explained by modern men in various ways. Some accept it almost as it is explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. For example, in Hebrew literature, time is accepted in the same spirit as a representation of God, who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets. Metaphysically, time is distinguished as absolute and real. Absolute time is continuous and is unaffected by the speed or slowness of material things. Time is astronomically and mathematically calculated in relation to the speed, change, and life of a particular object. Factually, however, time has nothing to do with the relativities of things. Rather, everything is shaped and calculated in terms of the facility offered by time. So here, there's so much to be said about time. First, it objectively exists. It's real. It's beyond relativity. It's absolute. It's continuous. It's unaffected by the slowness and or speed of things. And yet, it has some relation to material existence. We'll read in the next chapter that time is experienced differently on different planets, that the ant and the drum for 100 years, but time is experienced relatively. Time is experienced relatively. The time is experienced subjectively also. When you're having fun, then time passes quickly. And when you're waiting for a bus, time passes with excruciating slowness. So time is has its relative references or relative, it's measured in terms of material things, the passage of the sun over a sundial, or the rising and setting of the sun mark the movements of time. So time appears to be relative, or time exists in relation to material relativities. Yet at the same time, time is absolute and has nothing to do with the relativities of things. Everything is shaped and calculated by time. Time is the basic measurement of the activity of our senses, by which we calculate past, present, and future. But in factual calculation, time has no beginning and time has no end. And you can't even break it up, it's absolute. Time can't be broken up into pieces, time can't be calculated. And yet it is calculated. Chanakya Pandit says that even a slight fraction of time cannot be purchased with millions of dollars. And therefore, even a moment of time lost without his loss in life. Time is not subject to any form of psychology, nor are the moments objective realities in themselves, but they are dependent on particular experiences. So there's what we call objective time, clock time, and then there's psychological time. How long you have to wait till your next birthday when you're a kid seems like a long, long time. And when you're old, from year to year, it passes quickly. So this is psychological time, or we already gave the example of waiting for a bus. It can take so much time, psychologically. Time is stretchable. Well, we can get into that, but we won't. There are ways of altering one's experience, or the ways in which one's experience of time can be altered, so that short time seems like a long duration, and vice versa. So in any case, that's psychological time. But and then there are moments which Prabhupada said aren't objective realities in themselves. They seem to exist in terms of particular experiences. Therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami concludes that the time factor is intermixed with the activities, actions, and reactions of the external energy of the Lord. So that's significant. Time is endless, time is beginningless, time is absolute, time is beyond all material influences, time stands apart. And yet time is experienced in terms of the relativities of the material world, because it's mixed, intermixed with the external energy. It's acting within the external energy, it's interacting with the external energy. And so we have these experiences of time in terms of matter and material activities. The external energy or material nature works under the superintendence of the time factor as the Lord himself. And that is why material nature appears to have produced so many wonderful things in the cosmic manifestation. The matter appears to have created so many things, but it can't create nothing without time. You can't create Niagara Falls or stellar galaxies or anything. Without time, material nature can't do anything. Even the scientists believe that different species evolved over time, over millions and millions of years, over vast expanses of time. They think that the universe also evolved over vast periods of time. So without time, nothing happens. Without time, nothing happens. Material nature can't give birth to the universe without time. Just as a woman can't bear a child without time. It's not that she becomes pregnant and the child appears. Time has to elapse. Time is necessary. So time is necessary for anything to happen. In that sense, God is necessary. God is necessary. Why do we have to have God? Why does God have to intervene? Because material nature can't do anything on its own. There has to be time. And you tell me where time came from. Why, in the scheme of things, there should be this very mysterious entity called time, which has no beginning, which has no end, which is invisible, all-powerful. You tell me why time is there. It doesn't arise from material nature, because material nature would need time in which to produce time. So that's backwards. Time exists first, and material interactions exist subsequently. Everything's dependent on time. Bhagavad Gita confirms this conclusion as follows. Mayadhyakshena prakriti suvyate sacharachara etunanena kaunteya jagat parivartate. I'd be more comfortable on the seat there. Tulsi Priya says, "Oh Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain. I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence." You have a beautiful example of the subjectivity of time. A moment feels like 12 years for the devotee feeling separation from Krishna. A moment seems like a yuga, yugayitam nimeshena. Yes, subjective time. Meena asks, is time conscious? Is time conscious? The time is impersonal. Time is conscious in the sense that Krishna is conscious, and time is identical with Krishna. But there's no indication that time has separate consciousness. I haven't seen anything to that effect. Time is sometimes personified poetically, but I haven't seen any indication that time is separately conscious. Yes,
Talking about time as being an impersonal feature. That sometimes described as being impersonal.
Yes, time is the impersonal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tulsi Priya says, some will say that time is an illusion or merely a concept. Yes, but you put your pot of water on the stove and put a light under it and tell me why it doesn't immediately boil. Time is just an illusion or just a concept. Why is it that without the addition of time, water won't boil? You can call it as much of an illusion as you want, but without time, you'll still have cold water. And that's time is an illusion. You can say it's an illusion, but when after a certain amount of time, you'll be dead. And I think that time is an illusion, will also be finished. In one sense, you can say it's an illusion, everything, but no, Prabhupada says real. It's real. So actually, Einstein called it a stubbornly persistent illusion, and that reality is ultimately timeless. Yeah, I won't go into Einstein's take on it because there's a context there, and I'm not an Einstein scholar. From one point of view, time is a persistent illusion. How long does it last? It lasts forever. Praveen has a question above meanness. Okay. Let's see what's there. Can I explain the Hebrew statement? I didn't search out the Hebrew statement, God who in diverse times. Prabhupada doesn't, it's rare for Prabhupada to quote such a statement, and he doesn't really go into it. It's just all I see there is that there's diverse times. And I don't see more than that. And I haven't looked up the reference. Where is it from? What is what's the context? Again, there's that beautiful poetic description of what's called a catalog of times in Ecclesiastes, time to be born and time to die, and so on. Quite poetical passage, but I think those who are interested, we have a book. Being has okay. Time is impersonal energy, different from the material energy. Yes, it's different because the material energy doesn't do anything until activated by time. Mayajyakshena prakriti suyate. And my glance, time, our material nature, is spurred into action. That glance carries time. We've read that earlier in the second canto, how entered, how time is is the necessary ingredient without which material nature doesn't work. So time can't be a product of material nature or identical with material nature because material nature is working under the supervision or the control of time. So time is separate. Can anyone other than Krishna manipulate time, like freeze time or reverse time? That's an interesting question. From Shastra, we don't find that anyone reverses time or freezes time. In parapsychology, there's retrocausation. Essentially, the future, something in the future causing something to happen in the past. That's an objective or an objective or subject of investigation and speculation. But as far as I've seen from Shastra, time goes in one direction. Meena says, becoming more clear that eternal time in contact with material energy produces the three modes: creation, maintenance, and destruction. The modes are, I don't see that they've been created by time, but they're activated by time. They're activated by time. Everything's there, and time makes it all happen, makes things cook. Praveen, does time come in the energy category or the energetic? If energy, then which one? Internal or external? It's not described, well, it's just sometimes described as the energy of the Lord, the time energy of the Lord. And sometimes it's described as being identical with the Lord himself. It's not categorized with, well, yeah. It's the impersonal feature of the personality of Godhead that activates material nature. Sadhu Seva, in relation to the inhabitants of Maharloka, Tapaloka, Satyaloka, and Brahmaloka not dissolving in the devastating waters, they are liberated from the chain of birth and death in the material world. What kind of liberation do they achieve? I just joined, so apologies if this has already been covered. Well, it hasn't been covered, and it's a little off the topic, but they achieve, they're supposed to go back to Godhead. That we hear, along, especially those who've taken to who are following the footsteps of Brahma by performing devotional service, go back to the spiritual world. Tulsi Priya quotes from Brahma Samhita purport, Krishna never consorts with his illusory energy. Still, her connection is not entirely cut off from the absolute truth. When he intends to create the material world, the amorous pastime in which he engages by consorting with his own spiritual chit potency, Rama, by casting his glance at the deluding energy in the shape of sending his time energy, his auxiliary activity. Yeah. So this is, again, what we've heard, that Krishna casts his glance in the form of time, and then everything is activated. We have pradhan, or the inactive state of material nature. And then the Lord glances over that pradhan, and the pradhan becomes prakriti. It's activated. It's activated. So the yes. Anything else there? Yes.
It seems there's another from Saraswati.
Saraswati. How is the time calculated between period of destruction and next creation? It's calculated by the period of between creation and destruction. There's equal time. It's a cycle. That's as we see that in the devastations within the material world. Lower planet, at the end of the day of Brahma, there's destruction, and then there's creation again. Sahasra Yuga Paryantam, Vidahur Brahmano Vidu. Ratrim Yuga Sahasrantam? No, not from Yuga. Sahasrantam Teho Ratrivido Janaha.
Sahasra Paryantam.
Ratrim Yuga, so yeah, it is Yuga. Ratrim Yuga Sahasrantam Teho Ratrivido Janaha. So time is calculated. Day of Brahma, and equal time for his night. We don't get a calculation. And so we get the calculation of Brahma's lifetime accordingly in terms of his days and nights and months and years. And we hear that Mahavishnu is breathing, and we assume that his inward and outward breaths are equal. So that gives you the sense that how time is calculated. That's at least how I would calculate time in the period between destruction and the next creation. I assume that's the destruction you mean. Otherwise, the destructions at the end of the day of Brahma, they're calculated in Bhagavad Gita. And there are other destructions. Creations and destructions, they're calculated. Then there's the final destruction of the entire cosmos. And my calculation would be figure in equal time for its unmanifested state. Is time the same as Sandini? Meena asks, is time the same as Sandini? It's not described as being the same as Sandini. And Sandini is the existence, potency of the Lord, by which he manifests all that exists. And the spiritual world was manifest by the Sandini potency. But there's no time in the spiritual world, or at least not time that we experience. So the description of time is different. Of course, it's in one sense non-different because Krishna himself is the form of Samvit, Sandini, Bandini, and the time is the impersonal feature of that same Lord. But that's sort of stretching things. There's no one-to-one correspondence I've ever seen between Sandini potency and time. Now, Prabhin is this, okay, there's a quote here. Time has no control over activities in the spiritual world, Srila Prabhupada says. Pradumna, what kind of manifestation is time of Krishna? Kal, time. How is time a feature of Krishna? Prabhupada, time has no influence over Krishna. Pradumna, but time is a feature of Krishna, a manifestation of Krishna. Prabhupada, everything is feature of Krishna. So time is naturally a feature of Krishna. Pradumna, if we measure time in this world by our material bodies, and yet there's no time in the spiritual sky, but there's a difference of type. Prabhupada, no, the time influence is not there. Time is eternal. But here the influence of time is acting. Just like this table is new, but by the influence of time, it will gradually become old. Therefore, there's no influence of time. Every potency of Krishna is there. But their activities, as we find here in the material world, they are not there. So time, as Prabhupada sometimes says, is conspicuous by its absence in the spiritual world. It's conspicuous by its absence, or you look at it the other way and you say that time there's unlimited time. That's the way Prabhupada put it. Every moment lasts forever. Murari, what does it mean to say that Mahavishnu breathes? What is the breathing and why? As far as I've seen, Prabhupada just takes it literally. As you and I are breathing, Mahavishnu is also breathing. But our breathing is of little consequence. When he breathes, all the universes appear. And when he inhales, they disappear. So Prabhupada doesn't take it in any metaphorical sense. He's breathing, that's all. Saraswati, time is absent in the spiritual world, but we hear of Krishna developing from infant to young adult. Well, two things. In the spiritual world, there's no such development. Krishna is eternally youthful. There are no birth pastimes in the spiritual world, and there is no development from infant to youth in the spiritual world. But apart from that, there is time. Again, there's sequence. There's morning when you herd the cows. Krishna goes out to herd the cows, and then later he comes back. But that earlier and later is not the earlier and later of this material world. Each moment lasts forever. So we can't apply, and therefore the spiritual world is inconceivable. We can't really, maybe Professor Einstein can conceive of something more than we can, but even then, this world where there's what appears to be time, but there's no time, is mysterious. Therefore, it's mentioned in Brahma Samhita as a mysterious place. It's a mysterious place where There's time, but there's no past, present, and future. And time doesn't elapse. About a half a moment elapses. So, but that's the time of the spiritual world, but the time of the material world is also mysterious. We don't know how it got here. We don't know why it's here. It's always existing. It's a puzzle for the materialists, time. But they can't live without it. Any graph in science winds up at some point having time. Time always has to be taken into account. Therefore, again, they can't avoid God. If they want to avoid God, still they can't avoid time. Mrityu sarvaharascha, time comes and takes everything away. So time is all powerful, undeniable, and inexplicable by the materialists, why there should be time. But from Srimad Bhagavatam, and again, this question is time conscious. No one really says that time is conscious. Time wants to do this, time wants to do that. But then why does time do this and that? So, Mayajyakshena Prakriti, behind the impersonal feature of time is the personal feature, the personality of time. All right. Speaking of time, it's time for kirtan.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nita Gopinande, Hare Hare Bol.
Jai Om Vishnuvad Paramahansa Paripuracharya Stotara Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Raj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Jayādvaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Kiri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
It's always such a treat. Thank you. It's a real treat. Thank you.
Srimad Bhagavatam Mahamuni Krite.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Shraddha. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hi, Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Lakshmana, Hare Krishna. All right.
Thank you everyone for being here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayādvaita Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Hare Bol.